Hey comic book fans, welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0, and fans, you're back with me, Mike Spider Slayer, getting ready to do the countdown, episode number 130. Now, if you guys are not familiar with the countdown series, this is the video series where I count down my favorite comics of the week, starting with that worst pick, going all the way down to number 1. And at the end of the year, that number 1 book gets thrown into a group where you guys vote for Comic of the Year. So this is a year-long process, and if you're watching this for the first time, well, let's enjoy Countdown episode number 130. So guys, this week today we have 18 books to talk about, only one digital book that I read, so here we go. Number 18 this week goes to Gotham Academy, issue number 14. Now, the last time we read this story had to do with the Robin War, and this time around it has to do with a yearbook special, where the book is actually broken down into little different mini stories that is done by different writers and different artists throughout the actual book. Some are a little bit cartoony, some get sketchy. For whatever purpose and reason, I stopped reading this halfway through. I just didn't find myself interested in them reliving certain things that happened throughout the school year. And at this point, when it comes to Gotham Academy, and I've said this with my past countdowns, that this book really captures you in trade, as you can read it and there's a mystery that's going on, and you can read the whole mystery at once, where you have these individual issues that come out monthly and there's a mystery going on, and being that it does come out only monthly, you kind of forget what's kind of going on. And it takes away the appeal of that mystery, because you really get involved when you're reading the trade and you want to see what happens next. But then when it comes to the single issues, it's like, oh, I gotta wait, and then you kind of lost, the intrigueness of the series. I don't know. So for me, I don't think I'm going to be reading this monthly anymore. If I do read it, it might be by trade. So I gotta give this one 2.25 out of 5 stars. Alright, next is number 17, and number 17 is All New, All Different Avengers, issue number 3. I have not liked this story arc since it started. I know this is the introduction to our All New, All Different Avengers team. They got to start somewhere. They've been doing battle against Warbringer, where he's had to bring together these 3 artifact pieces, and what happens is it brings his grand army into New York. Well, in this particular issue, of course the plan fails. It was a very predictable issue. If anything, the artwork was pretty nice to look at. You did have some good character moments in here when it came to Miss Marvel, Ultimate Spider-Man, and Nova. Just kind of going with the situation being that, hey, even though we're kids, we're not too young to be part of the Avengers team. So there was some real pretty good moment there, but really, besides that, there wasn't too many standout moments. After their defeat of Warbringer in the series, you really get to see that this team is together going forward, because Tony Stark says, hey guys, what do you say that we form our Avenger team? We don't have an office, we don't have money, but let's call ourselves a team now. And that's basically what happens at the end of the issue, and that's kind of how it ends. There is a little bit of an epilogue at the end, but really nothing here to scream about. So I'm going to give the next story arc a try, as it seems like this series might get better as time goes along. It's just they had to start from somewhere, and they just started with a real generic villain that I didn't really care about, that had to do with the Chitauri. So after reading this one, I gotta give this one a 2.5 out of 5 stars. Just a disappointing opening series, especially after we got that free comic book day issue where Mark Waid wrote it phenomenally, that made you care about these characters, where here it was kind of like, eh. So 2.5 out of 5 stars for me. All right, next goes to number 16, and number 16 on this week's list goes to Web Warriors, issue number 3. This is another series where I don't know if I'm just Spider-Verse fatigued. I really loved the first issue of this. There was really good character moments between Spider-Gwen and Mayday Parker, but ever since then, this book has slowly lost my appeal. I find myself already sick of the characters fighting these Electro characters that have their own universe, and I find myself not seeing enough character moments out of the other team members. Spider-Man Noir doesn't play a big part. You know, Captain Britain, Spider-Man, he's okay. And then you find out that the realm in this the realm that the Spider-Verse people are in, I think it's Earth 001, we find out that it's not safe, and and they have to go and they travel to steampunk Spider-Verse or Spider-World. And in the other side of things, you see that Spider-Gwen's teleporter is not working correctly, and what happens is they wind up teleporting somehow to Mayday's universe, and she winds up interacting with old man Ben Parker, and we get to see Electro try to take out Ben Parker here, and he didn't realize that Ben had superpowers. So I don't know if I'm going to be continuing this one. It's just not memorable for me, and the characters don't really stand out. The artwork is okay. But I just, ever since Spider-Verse, I've seen too many spider-related things. And I kind of want to take that out and just bring it down to the core books where it has to do with the Amazing Spider-Man and really Ultimate Spider-Man or Miles Morales Spider-Man, and you know, one of the Spider-Woman books, which might be Spider-Woman, I'm not sure yet, because there's just too much. I feel like there's just an overflow of Spider books, where before we only had the Amazing Spider-Man and Miles Morales Spider-Man for the longest time, and now they're just oversaturating it. And I just think ever since Spider-Verse, they've been just throwing it out there. So I think I'm going to be dropping this, and I gave this one a 2.75 out of 5 stars. I got to start making cuts. There is just a lot of books that are coming out, and probably 75% of my books are Marvel books, but I can't continue to read every single one. So if there's something there that's not really spitting it out there for me, I got to drop it, because, you know, the amount of money I spend on books is a lot. So all right, so next we go forward and we go on to number 15. And number 15 was Starfire, issue number 8. Starfire is a great book. It really is. Jimmy Palmiotti does a nice job at writing the character. Starfire is very naive, but in a good way. It really fits your character that you've watched on Teen Titans and or have you read in Teen Titan books. And the artwork is gorgeous. I mean, Starfire is a gorgeous looking character in the actual issue. Her green eyes are mesmerizing. However, this book just featured her and Dick Grayson on a one-day thing where they meet with each other. They did a mission with each other in the last issue. And we get to see how Dick Grayson doesn't want to be a part. He can't be a part of Starfire's life anymore. They have pancakes with each other. There's some funny moments how Starfire just goes out there and she goes, "Oh, I like my phone, how it vibrates in my pocket. I'm very displeased when it stops," you know. And it just makes Dick Grayson like laugh. And, you know, there's just funny things that she says that is just hilarious in here. But there wasn't really no action in this book. It just kind of plays off of the last issue, and it was just, for me, it was very slow paced. And in the end, you wind up seeing Starfire hook up with Soul, which was her new lover or whatnot in the end. Again, beautiful artwork. It's such a nice book to look at. And that's basically how the issue ends. But while they were kind of doing it in the pool or whatever it was, there was some bright thing that was appearing, and we're kind of not sure what's going on there. I don't know what it is. but she was like, oh yeah, something wonderful is about to happen, so I'm not sure. But overall, it was a good issue. I mean, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. It was just nothing that blew my socks off, and I liked the last issue better, but this just kind of teased people how I think in the last universe in New 52, where Starfire and Grayson were an item. And so they kind of brought that back here for 2 issues. So it's kind of a little bit of a filler-ish. We're going to see where Starfire goes. I don't think there's really have been a really strong direction of what the future of this book is going to bring to its readers, because it's just been kind of Corey just basically trying to get adapted to the keys and her new environment. But how long are they going to play this on before, okay, let's move on here? So again, 3 out of 5 stars. All right, next we go on to number 14. Number 14 this week goes to Guardians of the Galaxy, issue number 4. Now, I really love this series. I really do. And this week it only got 3 out of 5 stars because for me, it was just a bunch of action against Hala the Conqueror, who is the last Kree warrior. And again, this is kind of the conclusion to this first story arc when it comes to the Guardians of the Galaxy. And in this issue, again, we have to find a way to stop Hala. And you have Gamora, who is a cosmic being, right, going against Hala. And you would think at first, I thought she still had her cosmic power from Black Vortex. It looks like she doesn't. And the Kree warrior, Hala, just hands it to her every single time. Like, she's no competition for Gamora whatsoever. And after some discussion between Peter and the other Guardians members, they found out that, you can't leave her. We got to go out there and we have to rescue her. She put her life on the line for us. So that's what happens in the issue. They wind up going after her. And the funny thing is the thing that stops her is from Ben, they're doing battle and Ben Grimm kind of falls from the sky and just kind of lands on top of her and she's defeated. And I was like, really? That's how you defeat this cosmic being? Even Gamora couldn't start her. But it shows that they kind of all work together as a team and they are a true team. So again, that's pretty much how the issue ended. There was nothing there that really sat there again and said, oh, okay. It felt like it was more fillerish than anything. And at the end of it, it kind of gets you set up for the next storyline as how Drax and the rest of the Guardians are going to have to go against Yotat, where we've seen this before in the Secret Wars tie-ins where they went against Yotat. So for me, this was nothing new going forward because I've seen this character before. So that's why I was like, really? So we got this, little bit of action with them defeating this Hala character, no in-depth story plot going forward, just doing more action and battle against Yotat. So where is this book going to go going forward? Is Michael Bendis stalling on this now? I don't know, but we'll see. So again, I gave this one, same thing, 3 out of 5 stars. It was average for me. Hopefully it gets better this next issue. All right. Next, we go on to number 13. And number 13 for me was Batman and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, issue number 2. I gave this one, same thing, 3 out of 5 stars. I liked it. I thought it was good. I liked the first issue. This time around, this book had a lot of dialogue. But in the beginning, it didn't. So there was a balance. Because in the beginning, you got to see the battle between Batman and the Turtles, which was very predictable. That was going to happen at the end of the last issue as they met. And we wound up seeing that Batman pretty much hands it to the Turtles, whether he uses his Batmobile or he uses his fighting skills. I kind of think that the artwork is a little bit, it's good, but I think they try to make Batman a little bit too bulky. And same with the Turtles as well. And so you spent, the first 10 pages or so of them just battling each other. And so there was no real big story there. But then you find out, you get more of the story going forward, how they have to be, get back into their time. Batman kind of finds out how he does more research on with Lucius Fox and finds out how, with the Turtles being back into this version of Earth, that the mutagen is reverting backwards and that the Turtles are going to have to get back in time before into their time before they revert back to Turtles and whatever else that they actually are. So we find out that Splinter and the rest of the Turtles wind up finding or following, I think, Bruce Wayne at the end, and we find and they wind up going into Batman's Batcave at the end as well too, and he's kind of like, whoa, that's pretty cool, so it was good. I mean, I just wasn't, I was kind of bored because there was a balance of dialogue and action, but I would have loved it seen throughout the entire issue, because it's just like we just got to see very little dialogue, and then they just killed you with dialogue towards the middle and the end, and it was just like, okay, all right, yeah. And it almost felt like a chore getting through it at the end of it. But that's for me. If you're a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fan, you're probably going to like it, But for me, I was like, getting kind of, tired of reading what's going on. Let's get to the point already, So we'll see what happens. So, again, Batman TMNT, 3 out of 5 stars for me. All right. Next goes on to number 12, and number 12 goes on to the Uncanny Avengers, issue number 4. In this issue, we wind up reliving how Snaps and her grandfather first became Inhumans. We know that Snaps' grandfather is the human, the Shredder Man, that's kind of making Earth all into this plant life stuff and whatnot. And in this issue, we wind up seeing the Uncanny Avengers in here wind up tricking, or actually wind up killing Snaps, and the Shredded Man winds up using his power to save his granddaughter. And it was all a trick in the end, so he can revert back everything that was happening to Earth. So based off of Cable's vision, he was the one that, I guess, persuaded Snaps to not kill the grandfather. So he's like, in the end, he's like, oh, I'll be back, I'll grow somewhere else. And I was like, okay, thank God, because the Shredded Man was it seemed like a very generic character, and this first story arc really focused a lot on Snaps, I guess, so readers get to know who she is more, because maybe she'll play a larger role going forward. It seems like Cable is going to be joining the team as well going forward instead of Spider-Man. It looks like Spider-Man's off the team forever because he can't stand Deadpool. So that was very deceiving, which I did not like. They really made it a thing to show you that Spider-Man was going to be on this Uncanny Avenger team, and he's nowhere to be found on it. And I do not like that whatsoever. And so at the end, they show you the final page of what looks like is going to be your Uncanny Avengers roster going forward here. The one thing, though, that sat there and said, okay, this is going to be the key to see if I continue this book or not. So they go in, and what plays off of the next thing going forward is you get to see what looks like Ultron, but Ultron is talking in a different way. It seems he's heroic, and the one thing you wind up seeing is that the Ultron armor kind of just like melts off of Hank Pym, and it's like he's wearing the Ultron armor now. So it's like another version of Ultron. So it's just completely weird. And he's like, hey, meet my friend Ultron. And I was just like, what is that? What is that going forward? I'm like, so that definitely piqued my interest. And it seems like it's going to go in a better direction going forward. Again, I just don't know why they really opened up the way they did. And that's kind of my problem with some of these all new, all different books. They just opened up in such a weird or generic fashion. Just like all new, all different Avengers. Like, why did they choose these characters? I don't know. But who knows? I'm interested in issue 5. Hopefully it'll get better. After reading this one, I give it 3.25 out of 5 stars. All right, next we go on to number 11. And number 11 this week goes to The Black Knight, issue number 3. This book was pretty good as you get to see the continuation of past events on how Dane Whitman was having this coalition being formed with other kingdoms and whatnot to stop the Uncanny Avengers because he knew their arrival. Their arrival was imminent. And so it kept on flashing back. And so then you witness this battle between the Avengers and everybody else. What you're starting to see. And then what happens is the Avengers kind of just sit there and persuade everyone to take off, and Dane Whitman's like, "Are you serious? Don't leave me," And you get to see flashbacks of how the Ebony Blade is slowly corrupting Dan Whitman and things that he's done in the past, and how he actually got to Weird World. So you get to see that origin process there. I thought it was an interesting book, and you get to see his struggles between, oh my god, I can't believe I just did this, I am slowly losing it, but then it was nice to see him again go to the Weird World, and all this time the Avengers trying to find him. So in the end, you get to see this battle between Steve Rogers and the Black Knight, and which I think is kind of just, I don't know where they're going with Steve Rogers. He is supposed to be this old, frail man, but yet he's still battling a man that possesses great power. I don't know how he can stand up to him at his age. He knocks him out, takes the Ebony Blade, and then you wind up seeing these serpent people at the end. So some inconsistencies with the book when it comes to Steve Rogers, but it was cool to see those flashbacks with Dan Whitman on how his struggles are from, how he's slowly being corrupted. But overall, the book was okay. Again, I gave this one a 3.25 out of 5 stars. I think this book might be better without the Uncanny Avengers. I think that it would be good with him being on his own in Weird World, dealing with his own struggles in his kingdom, and struggling to do what's right and wrong, almost like a Star Wars thing. Just get rid of the Uncanny Avengers. They're not really needed. I get that he is an Avenger, and I don't know if he will be going forward, but I don't know. We'll see. So again, 3.25 out of 5 stars from me. All right. Next, we go on to number 10. Number 10 goes to All New X-Men. Issue number 3, as we get to see the conclusion to the Ghost of Cyclops, and that's what's happening in this book. We wind up seeing that the Ghost of Cyclops are in this prison. The cops are realizing what's going on. There's all this destruction in the neighborhood. As they go to escape, they're kind of like, oh shit, we got to go back and hide. And our X-Men they finally find young Cyclops in here. And we wind up seeing throughout this issue Cyclops trying to persuade these Ghosts of Cyclops that this is not what Cyclops would do. I'm a different version of him. You can't go based off of me. You see this battle between this guy called Thirst, who literally spits out tons and tons of water out of his mouth. I don't know how many times you get to see that in the book. You wind up seeing that in the end, these kids realize that they were kind of wrong. They wind up going to prison or whatnot. They wind up being held up, and by the time you wind up getting to the end of it, Cyclops sits there and he wears the old visor and he says, I'm not not Cyclops. I'm done being in seclusion. I'm not going to hide anymore. I'm just going to be the person who I want to be, and I want to be an X-Men. So he winds up traveling with the rest of the group. And at the end of this one, you wind up seeing that that Toad comes into play, and he's like, Scott Summers must die. So I was like, Okay, so we're gonna see what in next issue with just Toad, like, or is it the Brotherhood of Mutants? Like, where are we going with that? It just shows Toad, and he gets this weird haircut. So it was interesting. I had some good moments there with Cyclops. I think Bart Bagley's artwork suffers a little bit in this series because of all the characters that he has to draw. And I think he had to rush a little bit on this too because this came out like 2 weeks ago and it's out again. So Marvel's just like pumping out these books left and right to get their, I guess, really to get their really first maybe real story arcs going, because in my opinion, when it comes to the release of Secret Wars being that it was delayed, I feel that they had to just come up with these almost meaningless first story arcs to go with that delay. And that's why these first story arcs haven't been that mind-blowing or intriguing or wanting you to pick up the next story arc, because again of the delay of Secret Wars. So that's been that's been Marvel's suffering there. That's been their Achilles heel. So I guess they knew that series was going to delay. So they're like, hey, let's just come up with some fun, story arcs, and let's make the second ones better. So I think that's probably the reason why. Is I think same thing. Could have made a better story arc for this first one. So, all right. Next, we go on to number 9. And number 9 goes to The Extraordinary X-Men. This book, obviously, this one is done by Jeff Lemire, and Humberto Ramos does the artwork. I love the artwork in some of the panels in this book. I think it's really well done. You get one page in here with magic in here, which was really nice as well. This page right here, I really dig that artwork, and we wound up getting to see them battle this Scott Summers, which right away it's known that it's a clone, and you thought that right from the beginning. It's not his body, it was his DNA, it was a clone, and Wolverine sits there and says, that's enough for me, bub, So they wind up doing this whole entire issue is about this battle against this monster, mindless Scott Summers clone. The action was heavy. It was really good. We get to see some good moments between young Jean Grey and old man Logan. We get to see this cool little battle between Mr. Sinister and the other X-Men. We get to see good moments how this team of X-Men wants to work with the Inhumans. They want to work with regular humans alike and mutants as well. And whoever mutants are out there and are scared and they want to come to X-Haven, let's come to it, and Storm will help them. She doesn't want to be in hiding anymore. She does she continues Professor Xavier's dream, and it's kind of funny because there was this reporter that looked like Professor Xavier, and he kind of just walks away, and I think that reminded Storm of who it was and the message that she's trying to deliver. There was a good moment at the end with Logan at first saying, I don't think I want to go in here. Jean's like, listen, if you don't want to go, then I don't want to go, but I just want to let you know that you're not going to be alone. And so just based off of that, Logan sits there and goes, okay, come on, let's go. And there was a nice moment at the end, and he goes, I guess I have a shot now that Slim's not around. And she's like, and something about, oh no, he goes, oh hell, someone's got to keep an eye on you, Red. I don't like the way the big see-through kid looks at you. And she goes, Glob? I think he's kind of cute. And then Logan goes, cute? Well, I guess anything beats you and Slim. And she goes, oh, didn't anyone tell you there's a teenage Scott now too? And he's like, oh, wonderful. So that moment there was really nice. So that's why this one kind of sets it apart from the other X-Men book out there. So I like this one. I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5 stars. All right, next we go on to number 8. And number 8 goes to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. issue number 1. This was a nice book. It really ties in now. It's actually a real book. There's no more one-shots or team-ups. This has to do with kind of the characters that are in the TV show, which was nice. And this book opens up with a person who actually stole or uploaded the Iron Man armor. It went into the Pentagon and wound up seizing all of the records of the superpowered humans, which I thought was really cool. In between there, you get to see the introduction of the characters, in case you don't watch the show, which was Bobby, May, Fitz, Simmons, Deathlock, and you get to see cool character interactions with Agent Coulson, working with a former lover of his, trying to get information out of her. And it was really cool to see the end of this book, as you get to see that just in case these superheroes went bad, they have all their weaknesses to stop them, and this mystery person winds up uncovering all these secrets. So it was a really cool book. It was a really interesting story, and this is a way to open up a new series, but you realize how this #1 came out on the same week as the conclusion to Secret Wars. So even though it was this is a brand new series, it wasn't cheesy or anything else like that. It was just a good opening to what seems to be like a solid series going forward. So after reading that one, I gave Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. issue #1 3 3/4 out of 5 stars. All right, making us way closer to that top 5, we go on to #7. And #7 is a digital book. I didn't bring it out there to show you, but it's the real-life type of book from Image Comics. It's called The Violent. This is issue #2. This book has to deal with real-life, everyday people they're fictional people, but it's something that could happen in real life, where you wind up getting to see a character who is struggling to be good. He's been thrown in jail. He's trying to survive on the outside. He's got paroled. His wife was a former drug addict, and at the end of the issue, she was dealt with not being paid. She's suffering, balancing her life with her ex-con husband, her kid, not having enough money to live, and you wind up seeing that she's gone missing, and her boyfriend is going back into prison because in the last issue he left his baby in the car while he was trying to get a friend to try to prevent him from getting drunk or doing something stupid. So he was thrown in jail. And in this issue, you spent the whole time trying to figure out where his wife went to. He went to the end of, in this issue, he went to the drug dealer that she was seen with, and you find out that she was nowhere to be found with the drug dealer, and trying to get answers from him, the husband winds up accidentally killing the guy. He winds up beating him to death because his head hit the end of the table. So this is something that can really happen in real life, as you could see. So really good book, really intense, but there was other books out there that were better than that, I thought. And after reading this one, though, I gave this one 4 stars. It's a solid book. I definitely suggest you guys, if you're looking to read something that maybe could be real, but it's dealt with these fictional characters, I think you might want to read that. So really good. All right, so #6. #6, we go to a Tom Taylor book, and it goes to All New Wolverine, issue #4. This time around, we wind up seeing Laura try to find a somewhat of a cure for her new sisters, her cloned sisters here. And she goes and she talks to Doctor Strange about it. And as she goes into the house, Doctor Strange just says, like, sorry for the holdup, but, I just got done performing exorcism, kind of going back to the all-new Iron Man issue, which I kind of thought that was kind of neat, that, these universes are crossing paths already. That makes you feel like it's a more cohesive universe. Okay, so what happens in here is you wind up seeing Doctor Strange talking with the girls, analyzing the girls, and he's trying to find out who they actually are. and if they're evil or good, or if they could be cured or whatnot. And you get to see a little bit about Laura in here too, on the things that she went through, on how these girls are not so much different than how she is. The book is really well written. I think Tom Taylor does a really nice job. Even though not much happened in this book, you get to see how they go into Doctor Strange's house and go against these supernatural forces and whatnot. And by the time you wind up getting to the end of this issue, you get to see one of the clone sisters are actually dying, and you wind up trying to do MRIs, and you find out more stories, how there was more clones of these sisters, and it was just a really good book overall, and I think this is a good story. And Ant-Man is thrown into the mix going forward now in the next issue. So I think this book is good. I think Tom Taylor turns anything into gold, and I suggest that if you guys haven't read All New Wolverine, go out there and read it, okay? All right, so next, got text here, so give me a minute. All right. So after reading that one, I gave All New Wolverine 4.25 out of 5 stars. All right, next we go on to number 5, and this book gets the top 5, and this goes to another Tom Taylor book, and again, I love his writing, and this goes to the Green Lantern Corps issue number 1, Edge of Oblivion. This kind of continues off of The Lost Army, but it's a new jumping on point for readers in this series. So in this book, you wind up finding out that we have our Green Lantern Corps members trying to get out of this dead universe. They're trying to get back to their own time. And what happens is Mogo's trying to use his planet Light as a beacon to retrieve the other Green Lantern Corps members, and what happens is it attracts a whole other planet of a couple of Guardians and a whole bunch of survivors from dead planets. And so what happens in the book is that after some discussion amongst the Green Lantern Corps members, they decide to help this planet and these Guardians to hopefully bring them back to their current time. And while they're being introduced, we get to see some what are supposed villains in this story. And Muck Muck is the one that winds up being searching around and saying, "Hey, hold on, I'll help you." And he winds up getting killed in the issue. He gets his hand sliced off. He loses his connection with his ring, so he has no more shielding. He gets strangled to death, and he becomes old skin and bones. And that's how the issue continues, or it leaves off on a cliffhanger. I thought the book was well written. It had a great mix of characters. And I think all the interactions between the Corps members were really genuine. And I found myself caring about what happens in the next issue. So I gave this one a 4.25 out of 5 stars too. I think Tom Taylor does a great job at wanting you to read more. So yeah, so good book. All right, so now we go on to number 4. Number 4 goes to Power Rangers issue number 0. I wasn't going to get this book at first, but for whatever reason I decided to, because people were talking about it, and I'm just like, okay, let me pick up Power Rangers. Is it going to be cheesy just like the TV show, you know? And I was completely wrong about it. I thought this was a very well-written book. The artwork is very gorgeous in here. This continues with Rita in kind of going into the Green Ranger Tommy's head about how he's nothing and doubting his powers and being, you know, the Power Ranger that he is, trying to keep control of him. And we get a nice introduction to all the characters in here. You know, they wear clothes just like their Power Ranger counterparts. And you get to see a little bit of everything. You get to see Rita, you get to see a monster, you get to see the Zords, you get to see how the Power Rangers power up. And it was a really cool issue and a nice introduction. And this reads so much better in comic form than in TV form. And I feel like they can do a lot more in this book than they ever can in the TV show. So if I was a comic reader and I picked this up and never heard of Power Rangers for the first time ever, I was like, wow, this is a badass book. I can't wait to see where this goes. I was just like, wow, really, really good and really surprised by it. The secondary story, I really could care less about Bulk and Skull. I know they're part of the Power Ranger universe, but this is an issue 0 and they're not going to give you a full-length book. And that's why this didn't get my top 5. That's why this didn't get top 3 or higher, because of that reason. I wanted to see a full issue. It would have been nice to see that. Again, I could deal less with the Bulk and Skull story, but it's a good introduction, and it does a nice job at showing you at what the comic has in store for its readers going forward. So great introduction here. Gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. All right, next we go on to number 3, and number 3 goes to The Walking Dead, issue number 150. Very well written book, almost like Batman and TMNT. This book was very action heavy in the beginning. Not very much dialogue. In this book, if you follow The Walking Dead, you wind up seeing Dwight leaving the Savior community, and he's making his way back to Alexandria. And Rick, after meeting with Eugene for a little bit on what they're going to do by creating an army, we wind up seeing Rick in the beginning winds up getting ambushed by a couple of people who are just tired of the way his leadership is. And so they wind up just beating the crap out of him over and over and over again, to the point of him almost being killed. And out of desperation, Rick takes his... it winds up biting the guy in the neck and ripping a piece of flesh off of him, going into his main artery until he dies. And so after Rick recovers a few days later, and us seeing Carl hook up with his girlfriend for the first time in the series, we wind up seeing Rick sits there and goes, I want my people to see me this way. And he sits there and gives them a huge speech about saying, no more are we going to be weak. We're going to be strong. We're not going to be on our heels. We got to take and be in control. He's like, the reason why we got to do these things is we got to protect what we've built. I don't want to lose what we've built. We are a strong community. We're not a weak community. He brings in the guy that was the dude that he accomplished him, in the killing, and he wasn't going to kill him. He just sits there and says, he's like, I want you to help me. I forgive you. And everyone's sitting there chanting at Rick Grimes and, have this newfound love for Rick Grimes. And at the end of the issue, you just sit there and it's all because of Negan. Negan's been feeding him this advice, and he's like, attaboy. And he's kind of changing Rick's thought process about things, being a stronger leader, building an army, creating guns, it's not showing people mercy. It just seems like it's heading in that direction where Negan is ruling through Rick Grimes. And I thought it was a really cool book and a really cool ending. Again, I couldn't give it like top 2 or number 1. Just the reason being is I've seen so many speeches from Rick Grimes in the past, 7 issues or so. It's just, we need to move forward. I want to see something happen. Nothing has really happened in this series, though, in the longest time. We've seen this new group, the Whisperers, come about and cause problems with Rick and his group. But since then, nothing has really happened at all. We've just seen a bunch of speeches, Rick dealing with his own emotions, not knowing what to do. And I just feel like something has been building, but it just hasn't happened quite yet. So we'll see where it goes. So after reading this one, I gave this one a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next, we go on to number 2. And number 2 goes to Superman American Alien, issue number 3. This is a really good book. It was so close to being my number 1. Gave it a 4 3/4 out of 5 stars. A lot of fun to read. This is just Clark when he turns basically 21, right? He wins this summer vacation to the Caribbean, and it's it's so funny because his plane winds up landing, and everybody thinks that he goes and he lands in where this yacht's at, and everyone thinks he's Bruce Wayne. They're like, "Happy birthday, Bruce!" And he's like, "What?" He's like, "Well, how did I land here? And how is it my birthday?" And you wind up seeing different characters on here. You see all these rich and famous people. Ollie Queen makes his appearance in here, and he's like, "But I'm not." He's like, "I'm not." And then every time he tries to sit there and say it, that he's not Bruce Wayne, he gets these girls that are thrown in here and whatnot. And so right away, you wind up seeing this one redheaded girl winds up taking him away. And he winds up talking with her and spending a night with her. And they have some good character moments in there. And we wind up seeing that they share a moment with each other, how it's like Superman trying to come to his own. It's like Clark being his own person, how he can't be stuck in Smallville, how there's much more to his life than what he is. And kind of Barbara actually gives him that epiphany, and you get to see them spend some time with each other. And the way you read it, it's like they had a one night stand with each other on this actual yacht. And you see Clark just having a good old time in here, and he's just like, "Oh, I'm Bruce Wayne." He's like, "I'm having fun," and he parties and he drinks. And at one point, after you got to see the kind of like the one night stand or them sleeping together, you wind up seeing that what you think is Clark getting drunk, and you're like, how can Clark get drunk? He's got superpowers. But you wind up seeing this couple of pages in here that it was this poison that was supposed to kill Bruce Wayne, and all it does is it kind of makes Clark really drunk. And he runs into Deathstroke in the issue, and he's like, "Oh shit!" And so he winds up doing this quick battle with him as he kind of throws this sword at him, and he breaks the sword, and all he does is he winds up flicking Deathstroke off the yacht, which I thought it was so hysterical and so funny. And again, they wind up spending the night with each other, and they wind up seeing their farewells. And Clark's like, "Why don't you come with me?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm almost tempted to, but I can't," and they wind up not going with each other. And you wind up seeing a cool cliffhanger with Ra's al Ghul at the end as well. But I thought it was really cool that Clark hooks up with the cheetah. I mean, that is so cool. At first, I wasn't sure what her name was. I had to go back and do some more research throughout the issue to find out who she was, because you heard him say Barbara with a question mark on there. I was like, that can't be Barbara Gordon, is it? And then it was like Barbara Navarra. I was like, that is the cheetah, because they said the name earlier in the book as well. And I'm like, this is before she became the cheetah. So it's kind of like Superman hooking up with the cheetah in this issue. It's like, hey, in the future, do you remember when me and you hooked up at the yacht that time when we thought we were Bruce Wayne? So I thought that was a really awesome book. It was so well written. I love Clark going through everything that he went through, realizing that he has to be something more than what he is at Smallville. So I gave this one a 4 3/4 out of 5 stars. So my number 1 book is a book that for a lot of people may be confused about, and it may be a personal preference, just like, again, how all these books are. And but my number 1 book in the end was a book that was plagued by delays, and I think it wanted to make sure that it was done right, and the art was consistent all the way through, and whatnot. And it was Secret Wars issue 9 of 9. And I think Jonathan Hickman really wanted to tell his story and put a complete ending period to this Secret Wars stories. And this story in my opinion, was brilliant. It was very well written. When you look at, and people can sit there and say, oh, Hickman's writing is confusing and it's tough and it's hard to understand. I tell you what, it really gets a payoff in the end, because this book goes back to his very first Avengers run, the very first issue, because there's a Black Panther moment in there where it goes back to that, and that's the payoff with his stuff. And it may be frustrating, but it was a brilliant conclusion to this. In this book, you wind up seeing a battle between God Doom and Black Panther. You know, who is stronger, the Infinity Gauntlet or the powers of the Beyonder and the God Doom? And you wind up seeing that God Doom is stronger than the Black Panther and the Infinity Gauntlet because he gets shattered, you know, and he winds up reforming himself. And it was all a distraction just so the Reeds can get to Molecule Man. Molecule Man is the one that possesses all the power, all of God Doom's power. And you wind up seeing a Reed Richards in here that winds up going back to Hickman's Fantastic Four run, where Reed Richards cares more about science, technology, saving the Earth than pretty much his own family. And in this issue, you wind up thinking that the Maker was going to work with Mr. Fantastic in this issue, but he winds up trying to betray him to try to get the power from Molecule Man to begin with. But in the end, we wind up seeing that Molecule Man sides on Reed Richards, turns him to food, and winds up eating him, which I thought was kind of funny. And as you see Dr. Doom make his way towards Molecule Man, finds out that it's a distraction, we wind up seeing that these two go at it for one last time in this God Doom universe. And we wind up seeing that, you know, it's funny that Reed could have sat there and said, you know, you could have sat there and done this battle world or this world in good purposes and brought me back here and make me remember my family and be with my family. But instead, you used yourself to replace me to be with my family. And he hates Victor for that. So they wind up going into this battle with each other. And so they're fighting for the rights of God Doom. They're fighting for the rights of Battle World throughout this issue, and they're intertwined with each other, which I thought was just brilliant, you know, brilliantly written here. And in the end, is we find out that, you know, Reed feels that he could make this world a better world, and we sit there and Molecule Man winds up almost grants him that wish, and he wipes the slate clean, and he blows all Battle World up, and it reverts back to that very first issue of Hickman's run on Avengers, where it opens up with Black Panther and him finding that, I think, the time gem or whatnot, and he winds up launching this space program in Wakanda, where in the beginning it wound up showing the incursion happening. So that's kind of where it happens. And then it winds up showing 8 months later the Marvel Universe, the Prime Earth, and it winds up showing Miles Morales in New York City with Spider-Man. And it reverts back a couple issues back where Miles gave the Molecule Man something to eat, which was that burger. And he said, I owe you one. And so what happens is it throws them back into the 616 or Prime Earth or whatever you want to call our Marvel Universe now, and it focuses on Miles Morales, and he sits there and he goes, what did you tell your mom you would be doing, Miles? So that means his mom is back alive, where in the previous volume of Ultimate Spider-Man, Miles Morales' mom was killed. So he's going to have a second chance with his mom, so which I thought was really neat. So Molecule Man granted him the power to be back on this Earth and having his powers with his mom back, which I thought was really, really neat. So in the end, in the conclusion, we wind up seeing that this is where our Fantastic Four family is going to be. This is where Marvel puts them. It puts them in the creation of other universes. It grants the power of Franklin and Reed as God Doom and Molecule Man being the battery of these powers and creating these other Marvel universes or these other universes into the future. So until Marvel is ready to bring them back, this is where our first family actually is. And it actually says Franklin, or actually shows Franklin asking Reed, are we heroes? And Reed sits there and says, no, we're scientists, we're explorers, we're putting together universes now. And in the end, it winds up granting, Reed winds up granting Victor kind of like this second chance on things, feeling that there is good in Victor, and he winds up giving him his face back and giving him a new life on things, or a way to look on things, and you get to see his outlook in all different Iron Man. So again, it's a lot to explain, it's a lot to take in. However, it's a very well in-depth written book, and when you see Jonathan Hickman from his Fantastic Four run through his Avenger run all the way up until this point, it really is a masterpiece. It is brilliantly written, and it takes a lot of talent to write a story like this. Even though this series was plagued by delays, everything that surrounds it, I think the payoff in the end was a great conclusion, and it tells you where our Fantastic Four is, and it tells you that they're not forgotten. And I really, really enjoyed this last issue. It may be hard to understand, however, and it may be over a lot of people's heads, but in my opinion, I gotta give this book a 5 out of 5 stars. I overly enjoyed this event as a whole. There was a couple issues where I didn't like, but I think when you read this in trade, you're going to really appreciate it. And again, 5 out of 5 from me. So sorry for the lengthy discussion, but I wanted to kind of show you or explain to you what happened in Secret Wars in case you haven't seen my review on it. But so there you have it. A very lengthy countdown. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. You've seen the worst, you've seen the best, and you've seen all that other stuff in between. Now it's your turn for you guys to tell me what your favorite book of the week was, what your worst book of the week was, and then all that other stuff in between. And guys, this has been Comic Book... I can't even talk anymore because I'm exhausted, but this has been the Countdown, episode number 130. Until the next comic book review, this is Mike Spider Slayer signing off, and thanks for watching, guys. Take care. Bye.